Hey, welcome back to Album April. It's April 16th, and today I listened to Are You Experienced by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Jimi Hendrix is widely regarded as one of the most talented and innovative guitarists of all time. He was one of the pioneers of using distortion and feedback in electric guitars, which are some of the things that make electric guitars and rock music sound the way they do. He also used a lot of audio effects in his music. This is all pretty standard now, but back in the 60s, it was not that common. He did not have a very long career, though, as he released his first studio album in 1967 and died in 1970 due to complications from a drug overdose. He is also one of the most famous members of the 27 Club. The debut album of his band, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, was called Are You Experienced? And the Jimi Hendrix Experience is kind of a weird thing because the band doesn't have a Wikipedia article. It just leads you straight to Jimi Hendrix's Wikipedia article. So I guess it's sort of like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, where like it's technically a band, but it's really mostly just like one person and their backing band. All the songs on this album were written by Jimi Hendrix, with the exception of one song, which was a cover. Overall, I thought that this was decent. It was solid. I think it's comparable to The Doors by The Doors. It actually came out in the same year, too. Much like that album, there was a lot of playing with left speaker, right speaker, or in my case, left earbud, right earbud. And it does use the same technique of having like one audio source purely in the left ear or purely in the right ear. And that became really bad in one specific song, but we'll get to that later. The musical stylings of this album I would put in between R&B and rock. It has that edge, but it's also pretty chill. As for those audio effects I was talking about earlier, I think the most notable example on this album is in its last track, Are You Experienced? I was hearing this very strange percussive sound, and it took me a few seconds to realize that it's the sound of drums but being played backwards. And because when a snare drum being played forwards is a loud, sharp, sudden noise tapering off, when it's being played backwards, it's buzzing, fading in, and then it stops abruptly. And throughout the song, the snare went back and forth between being played forwards and being played backwards. That was a really interesting effect, and normally I think that drums, especially in rock music, are way too intrusive. I do have to admit, a lot of the drum work was really good on this album. And the drumming was not Jimi Hendrix, it was someone named Mitch Mitchell. There were a couple, pretty solid songs on this album. Love or Confusion, May This Be Love. Are You Experienced is probably my favorite song on the album. The lyrics and the vocals were never really anything too amazing, but those weren't the types of songs where that was really the focus. It was about the composition and the instrumentation. There was one song in this album that I can definitively say I hated, and that was Foxy Lady. Not only was it unbelievably repetitive and very shallow, there was also the fact that through most of the song, Jimi Hendrix was only coming in from one ear. And in the outro, it was him singing normally in one ear while it was him whispering in my other ear. It was like the precursor to whispery ASMR, and I despise ASMR. And the worst part was that at the very tail end, there was a sound that sounded like him sucking his teeth or smacking his lips right in my ear, and it made me gag. I hate that noise so much. So if you aren't interested in being Jimi Hendrix's Foxy Lady, and especially if you have some of the dispositions I do, Foxy Lady is a song to avoid. But I think that is something I can chalk up to mostly personal preference. Overall, I thought that this album was solid. Much like some of the other members of the 27 Club, like Kurt Cobain or Amy Winehouse, it is kind of interesting to think about where Jimi Hendrix would have gone if he had been given more time to sort of expand his style. That's something that we will never know. However, he was able to make an impact in the short amount of time he was here, and we have music like this to remember him by. Alright, thank you for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.